A few weeks ago, I did a video highlighting how Nuno might want to start shaping this West Ham United squad, which players he's likely to want to keep and which players he might want to move on when the January transfer window opens up. And one of the reasons for moving on a few players is potentially to generate funds to invest in bringing in players of his own. Today, I'm going to focus a little deeper in one particular area, and that's the goalkeeping setup with a keeper who looks like he could be on his way out of the club when that January window opens. And that player, of course, is Mads Hermansen, who has only been at the club for what, 6 months, less than that, after his move from Leicester in the summer. With Nuno being an ex keeper himself, he's decided that Alphonse Areola will continue to remain our number one. But despite Hermansen being on the bench as a backup, one does wonder whether the position is by default because of Lucas Fabianski's recent injury. And of course, the only other option we've got is young Finley Herrick, who is probably just a little bit too inexperienced to be the number two. But straight away, naming those two keepers demonstrates that Nuno does have other options to Hermansen, which could expedite the Dane's departure from the club in January. Look, if you're new to the West Ham Voice, or if you've watched the channel before but yet to become a subscriber, there's a QR code that's going to appear in the corner. Please do click on that, and that will take you straight to the subscription page for the West Ham Voice. And subscription is free of charge. And but if you don't want to become a subscriber but you enjoy the content, then at the bottom of the video there's a like button. Please do click on that because it elevates the channel in the YouTube algorithms. There's also a hype button there which allows you to promote the video to other viewers. And if you're feeling generous, and if you've heard this before, my apologies, you can become a member of the channel by clicking again through the subscription QR code and then clicking on join. Membership is $1.99 a month, and you do get extra content for that. And all the money raised through the membership scheme goes directly to Prostate Cancer UK. Right, let's get on with it. So Hermansen's arrival in the summer was meant to be a long-term solution between the sticks. Early on, he started plenty of games, but struggled to find consistent form. And his performances sparked real questions from fans, despite former coaches Graham Potter sticking by his side and continuing to select him. Now, reports in recent days suggest that West Ham are prepared to consider selling the Dane in the January window, a move driven by those poor performances. There's also the financial and reputational element involved as well. A big money signing who hasn't done well raises pressure from the fan base on the board as an example of yet again poor decision making on transfers, with too many hands dipping into the transfer market pie. Hermansen arrived on the strong recommendation of previous goalkeeping coach Kasper Ankergen, who had worked with the player during their time at Brøndby. And Potter, he pushed, or from what we understand, insisted on getting the player to West Ham in the summer. Now, the outcome of Hermansen's arrival meant that Alphonse Areola dropped to the bench, whilst Lucas Fabianski did not have his contract renewed for the one more year that we expected. It was a bit of a humiliating situation by Potter, who decided not to renew Fabianski's contract, and then he found that he had no choice but to re-sign him after West Foderingham had got himself a deal to play in the Cypriot League. Now, sure, at 40 years of age, many would argue that Fabianski's time was already up and he shouldn't be continuing to get extended contracts, especially at a Premier League club. But if called upon, the one thing that we know about Fabianski is he's reliable. Now, considering what we needed to boost the squad, to strengthen the squad in the summer, many fans saw the goalie position as important, but not necessarily one of the highest of priorities to sign players for. when areas such as our striker situation were screaming out for investment. Now, the £15 million spent on Hermansen is, in this day and age, not an awful lot of money for a player, but it could have gone towards another striker at the club instead. However, with Nuno likely to want to bring in reinforcements this January, whatever we get back if we do manage to sell Hermansen, plus the saving of his £45,000 a week salary, will certainly go towards strengthening the can't even say it, strengthening the squad in other areas. Now, that of course is down to we can actually find a buyer for the goalie himself. So if Hermansen is to go in January, what are Nuno's options in goal? Well, as mentioned, Alphonse Areola is the immediate trusted alternative. He seems to have regained some of his confidence and has been far more commanding in the box in recent games. Do we forgive him for his error, which led to Burnley's second goal last weekend? I guess we do, only if it doesn't affect the outcome of our season, where that one goal might determine whether we stay up or go down because of goal difference. Lucas Fabianski recently sustained a lower back injury, but he is still an experienced backup, an experienced voice in the dressing room. Now, he should be back for the game against Bournemouth after the international break, and it'll be interesting to see whether Hermansen keeps his place on the bench or whether Fabianski replaces him. Now, Fabianski's injury and Hermansen's loss of form is probably the reason why there was a recall of highly rated academy keeper Finlay Herrick, who was playing regular senior football at Boreham Wood. By all accounts, he was doing exceptionally well and also getting recognised at England youth international level as well. Now, Herrick would be a third choice understudy. He will offer an internal cover solution, especially during a congested fixture list or if we get another injury to any of our keepers. Now, the recall from his loan spell signals West Ham's renewed willingness to try academy players and to use the first team as a development pathway. A pragmatic choice that also gives Nuno extra options without having to spend money on yet another keeper in January. But it is interesting to note how the goalkeeping coaches at West Ham have contributed towards the situation we're in right now. Now, since Xavi Valero's departure in June of this year, we have had no fewer than 4 different goalkeeping coaches since his departure. Graham Potter drafted in Linus Candelin and, as I've mentioned, Kasper Ankersen. And as I've already said, Ankersen is the one that recommended Hermansen to Potter. But with Potter being sacked, the backroom coaches went with him. Now, on Nuno's arrival, he brought in academy coaches, which included goalkeeping coach Billy Lepine, who is likely to have influenced the return of Herrick from his loan spell. And probably the most significant arrival in terms of goalkeeping coaches is Rui Barbosa. Barbosa has a long history of working with Nuno and brings a proven relationship and specific methodologies to the goalkeeping department. Since Barbosa's arrival, Areola's form has taken a dramatic shift for the better. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe it is, or maybe it's Rui Barbosa's approach, his methodology, which has benefited from Areola's improvement. Now, the areas that Areola has benefited from has been notably his distribution. If you saw in the last couple of games, instead of kicking the ball out, a couple of occasions, he's thrown the ball out and quite direct as well. And his decision-making in the box, like coming out for more punches, trying to command the penalty box, has certainly improved. So putting this all together, what does this mean for West Ham's goalkeeping situation moving forward? Well, for the short term, the overriding aim is immediate stability, which I think is what we're seeing. If Hermansen is sold, West Ham will need a replacement. And right now, that replacement seems to be Finlay Herrick as the third choice behind Areola and Fabianski. Now, selling Hermansen so quickly will probably come as no surprise to anyone. Areola's re-emergence because of the arrival of trusted coach Barbosa has certainly helped to improve the here and now. And bringing in youth like Herrick back into the senior fold sends a message that the club is balancing short-term firefighting with long-term sustainability and giving academy talent a real pathway into the first team. When you add it all together, Nuno's priority is about reliability starting at the back. What happens in January will determine what happens next with the likes of goalkeeper Hermansen at West Ham United. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, like I said, please do hit the like button. Please do consider becoming a subscriber, and I'll see you all again pretty soon.